Hello, welcome back. It's Sarah from Roadworthy. Well, I've been actually reading a lot this week. I've been busy creating, knitting, sketching, sewing. I've got lots of projects going on. What else? Oh, we're dog sitting. I'm sure she's gonna, come here, Bella. Come here. Come here. Anyway, I know she's gonna come over at some point during this filming. She is this little terrier and she's not very attractive. And we've never really, I don't really know any small dogs. So it's a little weird to be dog sitting this very non-dog-like dog. Anyway, it's a different experience. Anyway, that's what I got going on this week. And I have 4 books, excuse me, to tell you about. So I'm gonna just crack on into it. First, well, let me, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. This was in honor of Marilyn Maya Mendoza's booktube anniversary and her birthday and her phenomenal woman readathon. I feel like this is probably the most famous and widely read American memoir. So I'm not sure I need to tell anybody too much what it's about, but this is Maya Angelou, one of her early autobiographies, talking about her childhood in up through high school graduation. So it's her living with her grandmother in Stamps, Alabama, and her parents out in California, and is it her aunt? And then family in St. Louis? Anyway, kind of irrelevant, but it's really talking about a lot with racism and systemic poverty, particularly down in the Alabama sections. It's interesting when she's in the Midwest. I mean, you can see sort of, her family part of that Great Migration, as well as her parents having left and gone to California. And this is a book that is assigned a lot in schools for reading, and I can kind of see why. One, it does portray this sweep of American history that's not actually very frequently captured. But also Angelou's prose is it's so good. It's not like florid or anything like that, but she's so good at using just the right words to capture those childhood feelings of uncertainty, ambivalence, uncertainty. Did I just say uncertainty? Anyway, just, and the tone, it's conversational. Even when she's talking about the racism And, you know, just her descriptions of the sharecroppers coming into her grandmother's store. It's heartbreaking. But yet she just tells it in this very conversational tone. It's not confrontational and angry. There's something about her tone that just, you feel like a friend is telling you their life story. So, you know, there's a reason that this is, you know, an American classic. It was a treat to read. So thank you, Maya, for encouraging me to revisit this book. Next, I'll talk about my audiobook, which was River East, River West by Aubre Lescure. This is a book, I think I had read a review of it in Kirkus, and I don't know if it was right around the same time that it was nominated for the Women's Prize long list. And it's a debut novel. And it gets described as a reverse immigration story. So we have Sloane, who is an American expatriate living in Shanghai. And she, at the start of the book, it's 2007, and she is marrying Lu Feng, a wealthy Chinese businessman, and she has a 14-year-old mixed race daughter, Alva. So you have that 2007 storyline interspersed with Lu Feng's his perspective starting in 1985. And in Lu Feng's perspective, you can see sort of what happened to him during the Cultural Revolution, how he and Sloane met, how he went from being a very poor rural kid growing up near the border with North Korea and becoming this wealthy Shanghai businessman. At the same time, you're getting Alva's perspective with her. You know, Sloane has always wanted her to grow up Chinese. So she goes to local school. They live in, you know, a Chinese neighborhood. Sloane disdains sort of the expat community, and, you know, doesn't want anything to do with it. And so Alva is like this, you know, she's a little bit of a standout because she's mixed race. She doesn't feel like she belongs in China, and she's constantly craving connection to her American roots. And with the marriage to Lu Feng, suddenly there's money in the family, and Alva convinces Sloane and Lu Feng to pay for her to go to the American school, where she encounters these very wealthy expatriate community who live in these villas on the golf course, you know, and they get all imported Western goods, you know, blah, 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 blah. It's an interesting mashup of coming of age story with sort of this family drama of, you know, Alva rebelling against this new marriage and her Chinese identity and wanting to embrace her Americanness and battling Sloane over that. And there's social commentary too. There's a lot about the expat community, almost like recolonization, you know, living in these prime locations with, you know, cheap gardeners, maids, cooks, drivers, you know, living on the seaside, you know, just having access, and kind of being able to do everything, and get a free pass with the Chinese authorities. And it's interesting with Sloane being American, how even though she disdains that behavior, how she uses her white privilege on occasion to get what she wants. So it's a very interesting look at sort of this yeah, it's an interesting look at Shanghai and the, you know, cultural identity. What makes you American? What makes you Chinese? You know, a lot in here with race and class, and for a debut, you know, again, from probably my description, it sounds like Lescure is kind of tackling a lot, but I actually think she handles it pretty well. This isn't a perfect book, but I did think that there were places where it got a little bogged down, but for the most part, I really enjoyed it, and I really, really enjoyed her criticism of the foreign community in Shanghai, and sort of the Chinese government's willingness to sort of look the other way. So that was that. And then I read my first book for Shorty September, Mizora by Mary E. Bradley Lane. I mentioned that this was a book that my son read in school, and he gave it to me to read. This was serialized in the Cincinnati newspaper, the Cincinnati Commercial, in 1880. And this is considered the first all women's utopia book. And apparently at the time it was wildly popular. And Lane published this anonymously. She was a school teacher. So this is, we have our main character Vera, who gets this, you know, gets in trouble with the Soviet government, or gets in trouble with, sorry, not the Soviet government, but she has some wranglings with the Russian government, and she ends up escaping, you know, Siberia, and ends up in the polar north, and you know, Eskimos sort of encourage her to go sail off in this direction, to go to this land where there's no men. And she, you know, gets sucked into a whirlpool, and she's plopped down into this all-female utopia. And she each chapter is very much her sort of being guided by her friend Juana, or Juana's mother, to see various aspects of Mizoran life. So let's see how cooking is done. Okay, now we go into a new chapter. Let's talk about religion in Mizora. So it's very there's not really like plot happening other than her being taken to see all of these sites in Mizora as a way for her to understand their culture. So as a piece of literature, not really super exciting, but it is interesting to think about this being written in the 1880s. You know, it's post-Civil War. We've got industrialization happening. And so a lot of what this was focused on are what are the concerns that women in America would be having at that time. Interesting that there's no men. So, you know, a lot of the evils of society, you know, war, criminality, poverty, you know, all of these things are laid, these social ills are laid at the feet of men. And what they're very interested in Mizora is education, so universal education. And a real strong belief that education, free, public, mandatory education, will elevate everybody. And so in Mizora, education into university is completely free. And if people want to keep studying, that's encouraged. People are encouraged to take a job that suits their interests and their skills. So in Mizora, you know, the cooks and the housekeepers and the teachers are all revered members of society. So interesting that these, you know, predominantly female roles in American society are the roles that are prized in Mizora. The other thing that was really big in Mizoran culture was technology. And she keeps referring to it as chemistry, but technology. So she sees the laundry being done, and it's all done by machine. Cooking is all done, there is a cook, but it's largely done by through knowledge of chemistry is how things are prepared and cooked, and that there's no animals used to farm, or animals aren't eaten. A lot of the labor that women are having to do to put food on the table, to clothe their family, etc., all of that is now mechanized in Mizora. Again, freeing up women to pursue their interests and educate themselves. So, you know, just kind of, again, an interesting look at clearly what Lane's concerns were as a woman in 1880s America. You know, interesting, there's some, obviously some negative things in this book that comes out. This is a time where eugenics was starting to sort of be big in thinking. And so eugenics is a big part of Mizoran culture. That's why there's no men. And because, you know, anybody who has chronic illness or deformities or whatever, they've all been bred out of the Mizoran population. Interestingly, that everyone in Mizora is blonde, but Vera, our narrator, is dark-haired, and that comes up a lot. There's interesting talk too about the women of Mizora. What's prized in beauty is of course their beautiful blonde hair. They don't really age. So again, some things don't really change. But what was interesting is the women of Mizora, their body, what's considered beautiful is the women have no less than a 30-inch waist, because lung capacity and singing and physical stamina and athleticism are things that are prized in Mizoran culture, and women and girls are encouraged to exercise. And there's a lot in here about clean air and the benefits of clean air and clean food. Fresh, clean, unadulterated food, clean, fresh air. All of these things contribute to a clean, unadulterated mind. So again, interesting, not an interesting story, but an interesting book to read in the context of 1880s America. Last, Monsters, A Fan's Dilemma by Clare Dederer. And I read this for Framed, an art readathon happening this month. Okay, I feel like this book has been everywhere, and do I really need to talk about it, what it's about? I love this cover, which is not a cover I have normally seen with this book. Two, I feel like this is a book that's been universally loved. Woo! Let me back up. This is Clare Dederer. There's a little bit of memoir, but it's also mostly personal essays. Clare Dederer sounds like she was a movie critic. She's a culture critic, I'm gathering. Interesting, she lives near me, which I didn't know. But what she's talking about is it okay to consume the art when the creator is monstrous? So if the creator does something really horrible, how should you feel about their art? And she talks about this, coming to this because she loves Roman Polanski's films and really struggling with her feelings that he's a genius. Is it okay to be a genius when you're a monster? Is it okay to watch his films? Blah, blah, blah. And so she talks about Woody Allen, Michael Jackson, and then she mentions other people in passing. She talks about Doris Lessing and Sylvia Plath and J.K. Rowling and Pablo Picasso and Ernest Hemingway, all these various people. And this book was very uneven for me. I thought some of the chapters were really great, and others I felt like, what are you trying to say? and a lot of it felt repetitive. It was like, okay, let's talk about Woody Allen and, you know, his great films and what a horrible thing he did. Now, how are we supposed to feel about that? And concluding with, I don't know, you need to judge for yourself, you know. And so there seemed to be, in some ways, almost a formula as we move on. You know, now let's talk about Doris Lessing. What did she do with, you know, blah, 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 blah. But there are other, you know, but again, sometimes that conclusion of what are we supposed to think, you know, does it matter how monstrous the crime is? Does it matter how great their work is? Is there an equation here? You know, does it matter that Wagner was incredibly anti-Semitic, but that was a long time ago? Like, does he get a pass now? You know, so it was interesting, again, some of the things that she brought up. But again, I found sort of the writing uneven. It did feel repetitive. But again, I thought some chapters were really great. Like, she wrote a chapter on basically herself as a writer. Do I need to be more monstrous in order to be successful? And talking about the conflict between artist and mother, and how if she's focused on her art, then she feels like she's neglecting her children and her family. And that the women who are considered monstrous are the ones who abandon their families in order to pursue their careers. And that chapter actually really spoke to me, because it was actually something that I had been thinking about myself. Again, you know, I've talked before on this channel, you know, I do a lot of my own arts and crafts and, you know, things. But for me, I always feel like I gotta clean, I gotta think about what are we doing for dinner. I gotta do my like chores around the house. Like I have to do all that stuff, and then I can do my crafts. Sewing a shirt will never take primacy. Whereas men, that doesn't seem to be the case for them. So anyway, that whole chapter seemed to really resonated with me, because it's stuff that I had thought about before. You know, it was a mixed bag. There were things that I thought were really interesting, and things that I just felt like were repetitive, not interesting, or not really make it. I don't know what Bella has identified. She's maybe 8 pounds. So she's not gonna do damage to anything. Anyway, that's sort of my mixed review of A Fan's Dilemma. What am I currently reading? I'm listening to Smothermoss by Alisa Alering. This is a debut gothic horror in Appalachian, Pennsylvania. The Lover, Marguerite Duras. This is Buddy Read with Lindy and Louise. Here's Bella. Is she not cute? Oh, hello. I'm gonna put you down now. And last thing, Come to the Window by Howard Norman. This is my fourth Howard Norman book. This is his new one. This, I had no idea was gonna work for Shorty September. So that's what I got going on. And I got another week and then I'll be in Florida. I don't have any big plans next week, so I should be able to, I probably will film here at home, post normal. I think I'm on like my normal schedule. Anyway, hope you all are doing well and reading some good things, and I'll check in with you next week. Bye.